The introduction of God Ki in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods came with a number of questions. What exactly is God Ki? How does it work? And what kind of boost does it offer its users? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss that. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. With the very first exposure we as an audience and the characters in the Dragon Ball story had to God Ki was with the Supreme Kai Shin, or the Kaioshin, in the Buu saga. And when we were first introduced to him, there was a strange uneasiness around him as a character, and his aura was difficult to read, with only a character like Piccolo able to get a hone-in on who exactly this character was, and where he had sensed this power. So as we saw in Dragon Ball Z, the Supreme Kai was the highest god at the time, who reigned above all of the other Kais and gods of planets that we were introduced to where we discovered that he was a god of creation and the counterpart of Beerus, the god of destruction. So Revolushane, how do you view Toriyama's initial concept of God Ki? And I guess, do you view the Supreme Kai's power being based entirely on his control of this ability?
Well, when he first came into the franchise in the Buu saga and he entered the martial arts tournament, and obviously nobody really could pick up on what it was except for Piccolo. Of course, Piccolo himself is fused with a former god of earth, Kami. And of course, in Dragon Ball Super, the person that picks up on Beerus' God Ki was Dende, which I guess begs the question, do the Kamis or gods of earth have any form of God Ki themselves, whether they know it or not? Maybe they've just been exposed to this kind of ki before and that's why they can pick up on it. But yeah, in terms of the Supreme Kai's ki, I do believe he does have God Ki, but he obviously has a much smaller power than somebody like Beerus. But at the same time, he did state to Vegeta and Goku when they were flying off to find Bobady's lair, I guess you could say, that the Supreme Kais could all one-shot Frieza. Yeah, the Supreme Kai was essentially the one above all in the Dragon Ball verse at that time, I guess you could say. Obviously, unless you consider Toribot a actual character.
Yeah, and with Toriyama in general, he always is kind of pushing the goalposts further, you know. They introduce God, Kami, you know, and that's supposed to be the god of Dragon Ball at first, but then we find out, oh, there's King Yama above him, and then there's King Kai, and then there's the Grand Kai, and then there's Supreme Kai, and then there's the Dai Kaioshin. So I think that shows an interesting degree of how God Ki is not completely above literally everything just by existing, but at the same time still can give someone a gigantic boost in power.
I think it obviously depends on how much power they have initially, and then the ability of using God Ki, which I guess we're about to get to, elevates that power beyond what they currently have. It's more of a higher utilization of your regular ki.
And what Whis explained was that in order to utilize God Ki, the characters Goku and Vegeta or whoever else would have to power up their ki within their bodies as opposed to the outward power-up appearance that we had seen in the past, and they would have to also contain it. So how do you view this overall process, and why do you think that it makes these characters even more powerful going through this particular kind of ki control and process as opposed to what they were doing before?
If you go back to the Saiyan saga, we saw when Piccolo and Goku fought against Raditz, Goku had a power level of 416, Piccolo had a power level of 408. But upon Goku using the Super Kamehameha, by condensing the ki into a small area of effect, it ultimately elevated that power beyond what his actual power level was. I think he had a power level of something like 924. And at the same time, whilst Raditz was wondering how Goku was elevating his power, Piccolo was doing this similar thing with the Special Beam Cannon, and his power went up to 1330, way beyond his actual power. So, but imagine confining the power levels that Goku and Vegeta are at the beginning of Dragon Ball Super into the spatial confines of their body. it would elevate it to astronomical levels.
The same thing happened also when Goku and Vegeta were doing their ki clash, when Goku was using the Kamehameha and Vegeta was using the Gallic Gun, and Bulma's Scouter actually, exploded as a result of how high their power was going. Now, another thing I did want to bring up briefly is something I always wondered about is, do you think that the energy that was lent to Goku before he even underwent the ritual also had an effect on how powerful he was when he faced Beerus?
I think Gohan said something along the lines of he's stronger than he's ever been before as a regular Super Saiyan. So his energy would have been far higher than what it was when he actually fought Beerus on King Kai's planet.
But do you think that the current Super Saiyan God is actually a lesser multiplier from Goku's base than the initial Super Saiyan God we saw in Battle of Gods?
Yeah, I think the stacked Super Saiyan God isn't that much more than Super Saiyan 3. Obviously, there's no official multiplier, so it's impossible to say. But what we keep seeing in Dragon Ball Super is Goku going from Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan God, like against Jiren in the Tournament of Power. Even if it was the same power level, for example, even if Ultra Instinct was the same power level as Super Saiyan Blue, which I know it's not, using Ultra Instinct is far more beneficial because it comes with the ability of using Mastery of Self-Movement.
And in that case, when we see a character like Beerus, or where we see a character like Whis, or, even someone like Topo, for example, does everyone have to transform to utilize the special power, or is it just inherent in certain species biology, whereas in others they don't need to?
I think whatever kind of power-up Saiyans get, unless it's Gohan in his ultimate form, they're going to get some sort of variation to their appearance. In terms of other beings, say a Namekian, if Piccolo ever got God Ki, I really hope they give him God Ki, because if there's any character that deserves it right now, it's Piccolo. Trains as hard as Goku and Vegeta, but he's the only one that hasn't got a huge power hack.
It would be funny if Piccolo actually changed colors when he got God Ki, like he turns blue or something.
But that, I guess, brings us on to other characters as well, like Frieza. He changed from his regular final form to Golden, even though it's been implied that his race can kind of just change their appearance at will anyway. So he may have chose to do that, but his major power hack may have been using a similar technique to what achieving God Ki is, without him actually believing it's God Ki, because if it really is just a high utilization of your regular ki, and then it's just labeled God Ki once you've passed that threshold, then there's no reason why other characters wouldn't be able to achieve that. Obviously, it takes a good degree of training and being at a certain power level, but Frieza's the ultimate prodigy, so he may have been able to achieve that in 4 months without realizing he's actually achieved God Ki.
And I think, another character who may very well have God Ki that we don't know about, or at least would make a little bit of sense to, would be Jiren. As the manga elaborated on, Jiren's master was friends with Belmod, the god of destruction from his universe. So you could think possibly that if he was friends with the god of destruction, and maybe they sparred, then maybe he learned how to use God Ki from the god of destruction and passed it on to his own student Jiren, and that could potentially show just why he's so powerful come the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people like to dismiss the fact that Jiren didn't have God Ki by the fact he was called Mortal in the Tournament of Power. But even Goku, when he had Ultra Instinct, was called Immortal. And obviously that power was said to pass the threshold of even Goddess of Destructions. So I don't put too much energy into thinking that because he was called Immortal, that it doesn't mean he has God Ki, because Goku was called Immortal despite demonstrating God Ki and Ultra Instinct.
So, with that being said, considering that we have discussed how big of a boost God Ki can be due to concentrating your power, who do you think would probably be the best candidate to gain God Ki and take their power to the next zenith that they can actually increase it to?
If I had to say a second choice, I'd probably pick Gohan, but I think Gohan's ultimate form, should he start training it, has potential. So he already has a plot device in place for him to acquire higher power. And then there's, of course, Broly, who definitely doesn't have God Ki. So
legendary Super Saiyan God Broly, watch out.
Yeah. The only last thing I was going to say, if Cell comes back, he should be able to figure it out if Goku and Vegeta can figure it out. Or he should have the capacity to do it.
Yeah, and then Cell would become super perfect God, ultimate Cell. And I'd be very happy. But anyway, guys, this has been us discussing the God Ki boost in Dragon Ball Super. Let us know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Of course, make sure to check out Revolushane in the end screen and the description. And if you're new to this channel, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.